Day 1 begins before the sun does. I've been walking for almost 3 hours through the old pine forest, a canvas pack heavy on my shoulders, an axe tied to the side, and the kind of silence around me that only exists where people have forgotten to go. My boots are damp from the dew. The air smells of wet bark and something older underneath. Moss, stone, time. I don't know exactly where I'm going. I only know I'll recognize it when I see it. The trail I'm following isn't really a trail. It's a suggestion, a thin line of bent ferns and flattened earth that some animal made long before me. I stepped over a fallen birch, its white bark peeling in soft curls, and I paused to listen. Somewhere to the east, water is moving. Not a river, something smaller, quieter, a spring, maybe. My feet turned toward the sound without asking my permission. The forest grows denser. The canopy thickens until the light comes down in narrow shafts, pale gold cutting through the green. I can hear my own breath now. Steady, measured. My pack creaks against my back. A crow calls somewhere high above, and the whole forest seems to hold still for a moment, as if it's noticed I'm here. And then I find it. A clearing, maybe 40 feet across, ringed by oaks so old their trunks look carved rather than grown. At the far edge, a shelf of dark, mossy rock rises from the earth, and from a crack in that rock, water is flowing. A thin, clean stream of it, falling about 4 feet into a shallow, natural basin below. The basin is small, barely wider than I am tall, but the water is so clear I can count the pebbles on the bottom. Steam rises faintly from its surface in the cool morning air. The spring is alive. I lower my pack onto a flat stone, and I just stand there for a long time. I don't touch anything. I don't take anything out. Just look. Because I've been searching for a place like this for almost a year, and I want to remember exactly how it felt the first time I saw it. This is where I'll build. By midday, I've mapped the clearing out in my head. The cabin will go on the western side, where the ground is flat, and the oaks grow thickest. They'll shelter the roof from the worst of the summer heat and the winter wind. The pool, and it will be a pool, not just a basin, will be carved out from where the spring already flows, expanded into something deep enough to swim in, ringed with stone, fed constantly by the mountain water. Between the two, a small fire pit and a stretch of flat earth where I can work. That's the plan. That's the whole of it. I start with what I know. I walk the perimeter of the clearing, and I count trees that have already fallen. Storms do most of the logging work out here if you know where to look. Within an hour, I've found 4 good oaks lying in the undergrowth, all of them cured by time. None of them too rotten to use. One of them is massive. The trunk must be 30 inches across. That one will be the ridge beam. That one will hold the whole thing up. I set up camp near the spring. Just a tarp strung between 2 trees, a bedroll underneath, a small fire ring built from river stones. I'll sleep here every night until the cabin is closed in. That's the deal I've made with myself. The first real work begins in the afternoon. I take my axe to a straight young pine at the edge of the clearing, one that's grown too close to the oaks and won't survive another winter in their shadow. The first strike sings. There's a specific sound a good axe makes when it meets good wood. A deep, clean thwack that travels up through the handle into your shoulder. I fall into the rhythm of it. Strike, breathe. Strike, breathe. The chips fly in small pale arcs and land in the ferns around my boots. The tree comes down exactly what I planned, and the whole clearing shudders softly under its weight. I limit where it lies. I strip the bark in long, wet ribbons. By the time the light starts to soften, I have 3 peeled logs ready for the foundation, and my hands are aching in that good way. That means I actually did something today. That night, I cook a simple stew over the fire, dried beans, a handful of wild onion I pulled from the edge of the clearing, a pinch of salt from the tin in my pack. I eat it slowly, listening. A barred owl starts calling from somewhere north of camp. Another answers, farther away. The spring behind me keeps its constant. Soft percussion, the little 4-foot fall, the basin filling, the overflow trickling down into the forest floor. I fall asleep to that sound. It's the best lullaby I've had in years. Day 2, Day 3, Day 4. The rhythm sets in. I've decided on a post-on-beam structure. No nails, no screws, just mortise and tenon joinery. Wood locked into wood, the way people built before they had factories to sell them shortcut. It takes longer. I know it takes longer. But every joint I cut will outlive me if I do it right. And there's something about that knowledge that keeps my hands patient. The foundation comes first. I dig 6 holes at the corners and midpoints of what will become the cabin's footprint, 12 feet by 16 feet. Modest, but
heavy
enough.
Stone.
The earth here is thin over bedrock, which is a blessing and a curse. A blessing because I won't have settling problems.
That's
a
a
curse
big one.
because every hole takes me an hour of prying with an iron bar and scooping with a trowel and cursing under my breath. I find stones the size of my fist, stones the size of loaves of bread, stones I have to stand up and laver out with the bar wedged against my thigh. My palms blister by the end of the first day of digging. By the end of the second day, the blisters have become calluses, and the calluses have become part of the work. Into each hole I set a flat foundation stone, and onto each stone I set the butt end of peeled posts for corner posts and 2 intermediate ones, each one about 9 feet tall. I level them with a small spirit level I carry in my front pocket, shimming under the stones with flat shale chips until every post reads true. Getting the posts plumb and square takes me most of day 4. I run string lines between them, diagonal and parallel, measuring and measuring again, because I know that everything I build above this will be only as straight as what I set down first. On day 5, the weather turns. I wake up to the sound of rain on the tarp. Not a polite rain, a steady, serious, all-day kind of rain, the kind that means business. I lie in my bedroll for a long moment, listening to a drum on the canvas over my head.
Easy, slow and steady.
On my uskin.
Coming
and I
down
go work
now?
anyway. There's a thing about building in the rain that I've come to appreciate. The wood gets darker, the ropes swell and grip tighter. The forest smells like it did 1,000,000 years ago, before anyone had named any of it. I spend the day lifting the top beams into place. The sill plates first, along the tops of the posts. Then the long ridge pole that stretches the whole 16 feet of the cabin. The ridge pole is a 30-inch oak I found on day 1, trimmed down and cured, and it takes me nearly 3 hours with a ropan pulley system rigged from a high branch to get it up into position. My shoulders burn. The rain runs down the back of my neck and into my shirt. But when the beam drops into its notches and settles with that deep, final sound of wood meeting wood, I stand in the mud and I laugh out loud. Nobody hears it but the crows. That night, the rain doesn't stop. I eat cold bread and hard cheese under the tarp, and I watch the fire struggle and hiss in the wet air. My boots are soaked through. My hands are raw. I am, by any reasonable measure, miserable, and I am also exactly where I want to be. Days 7 through 12 belong to the walls. I've chosen to build with a hybrid technique, heavy timber frame for the skeleton, and for the wall in fill, something older still. I gather flat stones from the edges of the clearing and from the creek that runs a 1/4 mile east, carrying them back 2 or 3 at a time in a rough canvas sling. The lower 3 feet of each wall will be stacked stone. Mortared with clay, I dig from the bank near the spring. Above the stone, I'll fit horizontal half-log courses, the flat sides turned in, the round sides facing the weather. The stonework is slow and meditative. I sort the stones into piles, big foundation stones, medium filler stones, flat-faced stones for the visible surface. I mix clay and fine sand and a little water in a wooden trough I made from a hollowed section of log, and I stir it with a stick until it has the texture of thick cream. Then I lay the stones, one at a time, pressing clay between each one, wiping the excess with a flat piece of cedar, letting each course set for an hour before I add another. There is something about working with stone that makes time disappear. I look up and half a day has gone by, my knees itch. My back is tight in places I didn't know could be tight. A red squirrel has been watching me from the same oak branch since breakfast and has decided, apparently, that I'm not a threat. It chatters softly from time to time. I chatter back. This is the extent of my social life now, and it suits me fine. On day 10, I lose a tool. It's a small thing, my flat-bladed trowel, the one I've been using for the clay. I set it down at the end of the day on what I thought was a flat rock near the spring, and by morning, it's just gone. Vanished. I search for an hour. I retrace every step.
I cannot believe I lost it again.
I stand in the middle of the clearing with my hands on my hips, and I feel a flicker of real frustration for the first time on this build. It's a stupid thing to get angry about. But out here, every tool matters, and losing one feels like losing a finger. Then I see movement at the base of an oak across the clearing. A bushy tail, the red squirrel again, and there, half buried in a pile of leaves and acorn caps at the foot of its tree, is a glint of metal.
I found it.
I walk over slowly. The squirrel retreats, chattering indignantly up the trunk.
You little
I kneel
bandit.
down and retrieve my trowel from what is apparently now the squirrel's collection of stolen items. A bottle cap, a scrap of aluminum foil, and now my trowel. I laugh. I leave the bottle cap and the foil where they are. Fair trade, I tell the squirrel. You keep the shiny things.
Okay.
I need the trowel.
Back to it.
B-Day 12. The stone courses are done all the way around the cabin, 3 feet high on every side, with openings left for the door and 2 windows. The log courses go up faster. I've milled them with a draw knife on a pair of sawhorses, flattening one side of each half log and notching the ends with a broad axe. They stack cleanly into corner joints and lock into place. I chink the gaps with a mix of clay and dried moss, pressing it in with my thumbs. By day 15, the cabin has walls, real walls, walls I can put my hand against. Basic, roof. I want a cedar shake roof with a deep overhang on the east side, where a small covered porch will eventually face the pool. To make the shakes, I fell a straight cedar that's been calling to me since day one. A tall, clean-trunked tree near the south edge of the clearing. I sectioned the trunk into 20-inch rounds, and then I split each round with a froe and a wooden mallet, working my way around the grain. The cedar splits in clean, fragrant slabs. The smell is incredible, sharp and sweet and clean, like the whole forest concentrated into one piece of wood. Every strike of the mallet against the froe sends a deep, resonant thud through the log, and each shake that falls away is a slightly different shape, a slightly different color, marked by the grain of the tree that grew it. I make several hundred shakes. It takes me 2 full days. My forearms burn. The pile by the end is taller than I am. The roof framing goes up on day 18, rafters notched into the ridgepole, purlins running horizontally across them, each joint pegged with a length of seasoned oak, I whittled by the fire at night. I tie myself off with a rope when I'm working on the high points, anchored to the ridgepole, because I know better than to trust my balance after a 12-hour day. I lay the shakes from the bottom up, each row overlapping the one below, by 2/3 pegged in place, with small wooden nails I shaped from hardwood. It's maddening, fiddly work. By the end of day 20, the roof is on. That night, I sleep inside the cabin for the first time. The walls aren't chinked. The floor is still just packed earth. But there's a roof over my head, a roof I cut, split, carried, and nailed myself. And the rain that starts around midnight doesn't touch me. I lie in my bedroll and listen to the cedar shakes doing their job, and I don't think I've ever heard a better sound. Now, the pool. The spring falls from its rock shelf into a natural basin,
Deep end
about
here,
3 feet
roughly
across,
12 feet
and maybe
out.
a foot deep. That's
Steps can go
not a
here
pool.
at the shallow
That's
end.
a puddle. But the
Spillway
geology
needs to
around
be
it is
just
giving me
down
everything
that
I
hill.
need. The rock shelf itself is solid bedrock, and the ground in front of it slopes gently downward for about 12 feet before it meets the rise where the oaks begin. That 12-foot stretch, carved out and lined properly, is going to become a swimming pool, fed by the mountain. I start on day 21 with the shovel and the iron bar. The upper layer is easy, leaf litter, topsoil, soft, dark earth, full of roots that I hack through and pile aside. Below that is a mix of clay and stone that fights me every inch of the way. I dig for 6 or 7 hours a day for 3 straight days, hauling the earth out in a canvas sling and piling it at the back of the clearing where it will become a raised garden bed later. The hole gets deeper, 4 feet, 5 feet, at the deep end, near the rock shelf where the spring entered. I get down to 6 feet, until I'm standing in a hole up to my chest, and the walls around me are glistening with moisture. Day 24, I hit a problem. About halfway down the length of the pool, I dig into a layer of loose gravel that won't hold its shape. The wall keeps crumbling inward. Every time I clear it out, more trickles down. I spend half the day staring at it and trying to figure out what to do. Going around it would ruin the shape of the pool. Leaving it would mean a pool with a collapsing sidewall, which is no pool at all. I solve it the way my grandfather would have solved it. I gather large flat stones, the kind I used for the cabin walls, the kind that Crete has been polishing for 10,000 years. I stack them against the crumbling section as a retaining wall, fitting them together like puzzle pieces, keying them into the solid clay behind with long stones driven in at an angle. It takes me the rest of the day. When I'm done, the loose gravel is held back behind a wall of stone that looks like it's been there forever. The pool has a feature now. An accident turned into a design, day 25 through 27. I line the whole pool with stone. The bottom gets flat river stones, fitted tightly together and pressed into a layer of clay. The walls get the same treatment as the cabin's stacked stone mortared with clay. Face stones, selected for beauty, every visible surface chosen to look natural. I build 3 shallow steps at one end, for getting in and out. At the deep end, under where the spring falls, I sink a large flat stone as a platform, so when I stand on it, the water comes up to my chest. And then, on day 28, I let the water in. I've been diverting the spring around the worksite, using a simple wooden channel, a split log hollowed out with a gouge, propped up on forked sticks, carrying the flow past the pool and out into the forest. When it's time, I just kick the channel aside. The water comes, not fast. The spring is gentle, but steady, 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 and within an hour, there's a foot of clear cold water in the bottom of the pool. I sit on the stone rim and I watch it rise. The reflections change as the depth grows. First just the sky and the tops of the oaks, then the whole canopy mirrored in perfect stillness. By nightfall, the water is up to the second step. By morning of day 29, the pool is full, overflowing gently at the downhill end, where I've built a small spillway of flat stones that carries the overflow back into the forest to rejoin the natural drainage. I stand at the edge and I look down. The water is so clear, I can see every stone I set. Small bubbles rise in slow spirals from where the spring enters at the bottom. A single leaf, red gold, drifts across the surface and catches against the far edge. It It's exactly what I imagined 29 days ago when I first stepped into this clearing. Day 30. The last day is for the small things. I build a simple bench from a split cedar slab, smoothed with a draw knife, set on 2 stone pedestals at the edge of the pool. Inside the cabin I finished the floor with flat slate stones I carried up from the creek, laid in sand, swept clean. I build a bed frame against the east wall from peeled pine poles, with a mattress of folded wool blankets over a platform of woven cedar branches. I build a small table, a single shelf, a hook by the door for my pack and my coat. The fire pit outside gets its final ring of stones. The path between the cabin door and the pool gets stepping stones set into the moss. I cut a small window in the east wall of the cabin so that, lying in bed, I can see the pool. In the late afternoon, I stop working. I wash my hands and my face in the pool. The water is so cold it takes my breath away. I build a fire in the stone ring. I cook the last of my dried fish over the flames, with wild onion and the last of my salt. And I eat it sitting on the cedar bench by the pool as the sun goes down behind the oaks. The light falls in long ember slants across the clearing. It catches on the surface of the water and breaks into 1,000 moving pieces. It catches on the cedar shakes of the roof I built and turns them briefly gold. I think about how this started. A man walking through a forest with an axe and an idea. 30 days. Not a long time. Really. Not a long time at all. But long enough. When it's fully dark, I step down into the pool for the first time. The cold shocks me. Awake, I lower myself onto the flat stone at the deep end, the water rising to my chest, and look up. The trees are black shapes, against a sky still holding the last blue of evening. The first stars are out. The spring is falling into the pool behind me, its soft, constant music filling the clearing. The cabin glows faintly from inside, where I left a single oil lamp burning on the table. I stay in the water until my skin starts to burn from the cold. Then I climb out, dry off on the bench, wrap myself in a wool blanket, and walk barefoot across the stepping stones to the cabin door. Inside, the air is warm. The lamp casts long soft shadows on the stone and log walls. I sit on the edge of the bed and I listen. The spring outside, a single owl, somewhere. The small ticking sound of the cabin itself, wood settling, finding its final shape. I blow out the lamp. I lie down in the dark, on a bed I built, under a roof I built, in a cabin I built, beside a pool I built, in a clearing nobody knows about but me, and I fall asleep to the sound of the water.